Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everyone's had a good day today. As you know, we did not play Crystal Straw this past Monday, and things got in the way where I couldn't get to the solo game on Monday either. So we're running the ChatGPT 5.5 as the DM for a solo RPG game of Dungeons & Dragons 5.5. I'm running a Tiefling Fighter level 4, Rogue level 1 for a level 5 Eldritch Knight, maybe, or something like that. Anyway, that's what we're here to do, is play another game of D&D with ChatGPT as the DM. So we go first to what happened last time.
Previously on episode 2021, the road after reckoning. Simon survived the reckoning. After the road, the ledgers and the unseen powers behind them forced hard truths into the open. Simon was left with a choice: walk away or accept the burden placed in front of him. He chose responsibility. With Ash at his side and danger still thick in the air, Simon turned his attention to the caravan and the people depending on it. The merchants were not just names in a ledger anymore. They were lives, risks, debts, and consequences. The road did not grow kinder. It watched, it waited. It measured every choice, and Simon, battered but unbowed, chose to keep walking.
Okay, so that's where we're at. If I remember right, too, we were getting ready to have a short rest so I can gain some hit points back. Simon talks Vex into waiting for an hour so I can have a short rest to heal up a bit.
Vex exhales sharply through his nose, clearly irritated by the delay. He glances down the road, then back toward the tree line, as if expecting something to step out of the dark at any moment. An hour, he mutters. That's it. Then we move. The caravan workers don't argue. In truth, most of them look relieved. The tension of the road has settled into everyone's bones, and even the horses seem grateful to stop. The wagons are pulled into a tighter circle off the roadside, while a small fire is lit low and carefully shielded. Nobody speaks louder than they have to. Ash curls nearby, ears twitching constantly toward the wilderness. You finally have a moment to breathe. Your wounds ache. Your muscles feel heavy from the constant pressure of the road and the fighting behind you. But for the first time in hours, you can sit still long enough to recover. You may take a short rest. You can spend hit dice, recover applicable abilities, and prepare anything Simon would reasonably do during the break.
Short rest. So how many max did I get? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4d10. $29 plus 12 is 30, 42. Okay, so I've got my short rest. After the short rest, Simon will approach the alchemist in the caravan looking for some healing potions.
The hour passes slowly. By the end of it, the fire has burned down to glowing embers, and the caravan has regained just enough nerve to keep moving. Wheels creak, harnesses tighten. Someone coughs into the dark. Simon rises and makes his way toward the rear wagon where the caravan's alchemist has been riding. The smell hits before the conversation does. Bitter herbs, alcohol, sulfur, something floral trying desperately to overpower all three and failing miserably. Inside the wagon, glass clinks softly as the older man sorts through padded crates filled with bottles, powders, and wrapped bundles of dried plants. Tiny charms dangle from the ceiling beams to keep the more volatile mixtures from becoming ambitious, as he once put it. The alchemist glances up over a pair of small spectacles. Well, he says dryly, you look considerably less dead than before. Encouraging. He studies Simon's armor, the blood, the exhaustion in his face. You're after healing draughts, I assume, which means either you're preparing ahead, he pauses, or expecting the road to get worse. A beat. Smart money says worse. He reaches beneath the bench and produces a small locked case. Inside are several red glass vials nestled carefully in straw. Standard healing potions, 50 gold each. He taps another pair of darker crimson vials. Stronger ones too, though those will cost you more dearly, 75. He shuts the lid halfway. How many are you buying?
How much money do I have? 208. I'm buying 2 standard potions plus 1 stronger one.
The alchemist gives a low whistle through his teeth. Planning ahead. I approve. He unlocks the case fully and carefully removes the vials one at a time. The 2 standard healing potions are bright ruby red, swirling faintly when tilted like liquid catching sunlight beneath the glass. The stronger potion is darker, thicker, almost wine-colored. That one tastes awful, the alchemist warns while wrapping the bottles in padded cloth. Means it works. He holds out the bundle. Total comes to 175 gold. After the exchange is made, he tucks the coins away and lowers his voice slightly. You've noticed it too, haven't you? His eyes drift toward the road ahead. The feeling. Outside, wagon wheels creak softly in the darkness. Caravans live and die by instinct. Most folk don't survive long on the road if they ignore it. And right now, he swallows faintly. Every instinct I have says something up there is waiting for us. He looks back to Simon. So whatever you're expecting, swordsman, I'd keep those potions close at hand.
Alright, 175 gold. Okay. Simon leaves the alchemist and rides to be up with Vex. Hope we didn't waste too much time with the rest.
Vex is riding near the front now, one hand resting near the hilt of his sword while his horse trudges steadily through the darkening road. The lantern light from the wagons throws long shadows across the mud and roots ahead. When Simon pulls alongside him, Vex glances over without slowing. Hope we didn't waste too much time with the rest. Vex snorts quietly. If something wanted us dead immediately, we'd already know it. His eyes stay on the road. But I won't pretend I like stopping. For a few moments, only the sound of wagon wheels and hooves fills the silence. Then Vex speaks again, lower this time. You ever get the feeling a road remembers people? He gestures vaguely ahead. Not magic, not ghosts, just, he struggles for the words. Some places feel worn in by bad decisions. A branch creaks somewhere in the woods. Vex's hand immediately tightens on his reins. This stretch feels like that. Ash's ears perk forward. The caravan keeps moving, and somewhere ahead in the darkness, the road bends out of sight.
We continue to follow the caravan, keeping eyes peeled.
The caravan presses onward into the deepening night. The road narrows as the trees grow thicker on both sides, their branches knitting together overhead until the lantern light feels swallowed more than cast. Wheels grind through damp earth. Horses snort uneasily. Every now and then, someone in the caravan glances back over their shoulder for no reason they can explain. Simon keeps watch. Ash moves silently beside the wagons, sometimes disappearing briefly into the brush before reappearing again like a pale ember slipping through shadow. Nothing attacks,
Have you checked
which somehow
the mail?
makes things worse. The road twists between low hills and stands of ancient trees draped in hanging moss. Strange markers begin appearing more frequently now. Old stones half sunk into the earth, bits of faded cloth tied to branches, weathered symbols carved into bark long ago by travellers who likely never returned this way again. One symbol catches Simon's eye in particular. 3 vertical lines crossed by a single slash, freshly carved, not old. Vex notices Simon looking toward it. You know that mark? He asks quietly. Before Simon can answer, one of the scouts near the front suddenly raises a fist. The caravan slows. Ahead, just barely visible in the lantern glow, the road splits in two. The left fork descends into fog-choked lowlands. The right climbs into rocky high ground lined with dead trees. And planted directly in the center between both paths stands a crooked wooden post bearing a hanging iron lantern. The lantern is lit, but there is no sign of who lit it.
I asked Vex, which way will be better for the caravan? The low mist shrouded road or the rocky highway?
Vex studies both roads in silence for several long seconds. The lantern between the forks sways gently despite there being no wind. That, he mutters, is never a good sign. He first points toward the low road. The fog route will be easier on the wagons, less chance of snapping an axle or throwing a wheel. But fog cuts sight lines, ambush country. If something's waiting in there, we won't see it until it's breathing on us. Then he looks toward the rocky rise. The high road gives visibility, better defensively. His jaw tightens, but those rocks narrow the caravan into a long line, easy to isolate wagons, and if one wagon breaks down up there, he exhales. Everything stops. The hanging lantern creaks softly. Nobody from the caravan moves toward it. Vex lowers his voice. If you want my honest answer, his eyes drift between both roads again. I think somebody wants us choosing. Even the horses seem uneasy now. Ash stares toward the misty road, hackles faintly raised. One of the merchants behind you whispers a quiet prayer under his breath. The crossroads waits.
I tell Vex, I think the lower path would be the safer one. Even if we can't see what's coming upon us, we can still hear it before it's on us.
Vex listens without interrupting, eyes still fixed on the fog-covered road below. After a moment, he gives a slow nod. Maybe. He shifts in the saddle and looks toward the rocky path one last time. High ground feels safer to soldiers because you can see the enemy coming. Problem is, he gestures toward the wagons behind you. We're not an army. We're tired merchants pulling half-broken wagons through bad country. The lantern between the roads sways again. Creak! Vex notices it too. I don't like either choice, he admits, which probably means there isn't a good one. He turns in the saddle toward the caravan. Low road, he calls. A few groans answer him immediately, especially from the guards near the rear wagons, but nobody openly argues. The caravan slowly begins turning toward the mist-covered descent. As the first wagon passes the hanging lantern, Simon catches something strange. The lantern flame isn't orange, it burns pale white. And for the briefest instant, as the wagon rolls beneath it, the flame bends sideways towards Simon, almost like it's watching him pass.
I'll reach out and steady the lantern from swinging, trying to keep it still.
Simon reaches up as his horse draws alongside the crooked post. His hand closes around the lantern's cold iron frame. Instantly, the swinging stops. Not gradually, immediately. The pale flame inside steadies into a thin white spear of light. The entire crossroads seems to go quieter. No wagon creaks, no insects chirp. Even the horses stop snorting for a single strange heartbeat. The iron is freezing cold against Simon's hand, far colder than it should be. Then the flame inside the lantern elongates unnaturally, not upward toward him. For an instant, shapes move inside the white fire. Roads, rain, broken wagons, a body lying face down in mud, ash barking into darkness. And Simon himself standing alone at another crossroads somewhere far ahead. Then the flame snaps back to normal. Sound rushes into the world again all at once. The caravan continues moving as though nothing happened. Vex stares at Simon. You all right? The lantern remains perfectly still in Simon's hand, no longer swinging at all.
I'll put the lantern back where it was and continue to follow the caravan.
Simon slowly releases the lantern. For a moment, it remains perfectly motionless. Then, it begins swaying again exactly as before, as though nothing had interrupted it. The pale flame flickers softly behind the fogged glass. Simon pulls his hand away and nudges his horse forward, falling back into line beside the caravan as it descends into the mist-covered low road. The fog thickens quickly. Within minutes, the crossroads behind you is gone completely. The world narrows to dim lantern glow, silhouettes of wagons, and the muffled crunch of wheels through damp earth. Trees loom as vague shadows beyond the fog wall, their branches hanging low like grasping fingers. Nobody speaks much now. Even the merchants seem to feel it. The road has changed. Ash trots close beside Simon's horse, unusually alert, golden eyes constantly scanning the white haze around the caravan. Ahead, Vex keeps one hand near his sword. Then, from somewhere deeper in the fog ahead, a bell rings once, distant, low. Gong! Not a church bell, too heavy for that. The caravan immediately slows. Nobody says a word.
I ask Vex, should I go check it out first before we move any closer?
Vex doesn't answer immediately. The fog curls around the wagons in slow white waves while everyone listens for another sound. Nothing comes. No second bell, no movement, just silence. Finally, Lex looks towards Simon. If this is an ambush, sending one man ahead alone is stupid. A beat, which probably means it's exactly what whatever's out there wants. Another long pause. Then, but leaving the whole caravan blind is worse. He rubs a hand across his beard, thinking, "You're quieter than most of us, and Ash'll hear trouble before we do." He looks Simon directly in the eye. "Don't go far. Don't chase anything into the fog. And if you see something you don't understand," his expression darkens, "come back before you decide to touch it." A couple nearby guards nervously laugh at that, though nobody sounds relaxed. Then from somewhere ahead in the mist, "Gun!" The bell rings again, closer this time.
Simon will dismount his horse and gather Ash to him. I'll tell Vex to hold on a minute while I go check out the bell.
Simon slides down from the saddle, boots sinking slightly into the damp earth of the low road. Ash immediately moves to his side without needing to be called. Tail low, ears forward, every bit of the fox tense and alert. Behind you, the caravan waits in uneasy silence. Lanterns sway, horses shift nervously. Vex leans slightly forward in his saddle. "1 minute," he says firmly. "If I can't hear you or see your lantern after that, I'm pulling the caravan back." Simon gives a short nod and starts forward into the fog with Ash beside him. The mist swallows sound quickly. Within only a few dozen steps, the caravan behind you becomes little more than vague orange glows floating in whiteness. The road ahead is muddy and narrow, hemmed in by dark water and tangled trees. Strange reeds grow from the marsh beside the road, clicking softly together whenever the breeze moves through them. Ash suddenly stops. His ears flatten. Low in his throat comes a warning growl. Then Simon sees it. A shape ahead in the fog, tall, motionless, standing directly in the center of the road and hanging beside it. The bell.
Simon will holler out loud enough the caravan can hear it. Who are you and what do you want with us?
Simon's voice cuts through the fog. Who are you and what do you want with us? The words echo strangely in the mist, sounding thinner and farther away than they should. For a moment, nothing answers. The tall figure remains motionless beside the hanging bell. Ash's growl deepens. Then the figure moves, slowly. One arm rises from beneath a long, dark cloak, not threatening, pointing, behind Simon, back toward the caravan. And then the figure speaks in a voice like damp leaves dragging across stone. Turn! The bell swings once beside it. Gone. Back. The fog shifts briefly around the figure, and Simon catches fragments beneath the hood. Not a face, too dark to be a face. Just the faint impression of pale eyes suspended in shadow. Behind Simon, muffled through the fog, he hears Vex shouting, Simon! The figure does not move closer, but Ash suddenly bares his teeth, because something else is moving in the mist off the road to the left.
Whoops. Simon will yell through the mist to Vex. There's something coming toward me now. Should I come back?
Vex's voice answers faintly through the fog and distance. Yes! Don't stand there arguing with ghosts! The thing beside the bell does not react to the shouting. It simply stands there pointing back toward the caravan. Turn. Back. Ash suddenly snaps his head left and lets out a sharp bark. Movement. Fast. Something large splashes through the marsh beside the road, still mostly hidden by the fog and reeds. Not shambling. Charging. You catch only fragments through the mist. Long limbs, grey skin slick with mud or water, and eyes reflecting pale white in the lantern glow. The bell rings again violently on its own. Gone! The cloaked figure abruptly turns its hood toward the movements in the marsh instead of Simon. For the first time, its voice changes. Urgent now. Run.
Simon will gather Ash and run back to his mount. He tells Vex, we need to leave now.
Simon grabs Ash close and turns, sprinting back through the fog toward the dim lantern lights of the caravan. Behind him, splash! Something crashes out of the marsh and onto the road. Too many limbs, too fast. Ash barks furiously as Simon runs. The bell behind him erupts into a continuous deafening clang. Gong! 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 The caravan lights burst through the fog ahead. Vex sees Simon first. Move! Simon shouts. We need to leave now. One look at Simon's face is enough. Vex immediately wheels his horse around and roars, "Move the wagons now!" Panic explodes through the caravan. Drivers snap reins, horses scream, wheels lurch forward through the mud. Then something shrieks behind Simon from within the fog. A horrible wet sound somewhere between a human scream and an animal drowning. The rear guards turn just in time to see a shape burst from the mist, tall, gaunt, grey-skinned. Its arms are too long, ending in hooked claws, dragging through the mud as it runs on all fours and two legs interchangeably, like it hasn't decided what kind of creature it is. And behind it, more shapes move in the fog.
Simon will yell, "Circle the wagons." Be prepared for an attack.
"Circle the wagons!" Simon bellows over the chaos. "Prepare for an attack!" Training and fear take over simultaneously. The caravan drivers yank hard on the reins, pulling the wagons into a rough defensive ring in the middle of the muddy road, while guards scramble for position with shaking hands and drawn steel. Vex immediately takes command. "Shields outward, archers toward the center, keep the damn horses from bolting." The wagons grind into place with deafening wooden groans. Ash darts beside the perimeter, snarling into the fog. Then the first creature emerges fully into the lantern light. Its skin is corpse grey and stretched tightly over jutting bones. Its jaw hangs too wide, packed with broken needle-like teeth. Mud and black swamp water pour from its body as it moves in twitching, animalistic jerks. Its pale eyes lock directly onto Simon. Not random, intentional, like it recognizes him. Then another appears beside it, and another. 5 shapes now circle just beyond the lantern glow, pacing through the mist on all fours. The cloaked bell figure is nowhere to be seen. One of the merchants whispers shakily, "What in God's name are those things?" The creatures begin slowly circling the wagon ring, testing it.
Simon will shout, "Prepare for attack." We've got 5 creatures getting ready to hit us.
"Prepare for attack!" Simon shouts, voice carrying across the wagon circle. 5 creatures moving in the fog. The guards tighten ranks immediately. Crossbows are raised, spears lower between wagon gaps. Several merchants clutch knives with the kind of confidence only terrified people can manage. Vex draws his sword with a hiss of steel. "Hold until they commit," he growls. "Don't waste shots in the fog." The creatures continue circling. Lantern light catches glimpses of them between drifting curtains of mist, 2 thin limbs, hooked claws sinking into mud, heads jerking unnaturally fast. One briefly rises onto 2 legs before dropping back down again with a wet crack of joints. Ash's fur stands fully on end now. Then all 5 creatures stop moving simultaneously, dead still, watching. One opens its mouth impossibly wide, and from somewhere deep in its throat comes a sound almost like a human voice trying to remember how speech works. "Seaman!" Several caravan guards visibly pale. Vex slowly turns his head toward you. "You know these things?"
Never seen them before in my life. Get ready to spill blood.
Vex stares at Simon for half a second, then gives a grim nod. Good enough for me. He raises his sword toward the fog. You heard him? He roars. No more backing up. If they come through that ring, kill the bastards. Steel scrapes from scabbards all around the wagons. The creatures twitch at the sound. One of them suddenly skitters sideways with horrifying speed, circling the perimeter low to the ground like a starving animal searching for weakness. Another rises slowly to full height, tall, far taller than a man. Its limbs hang almost to the ground while swamp water drips from its claws. Simon? It rasps again. Then its jaw snaps open with a wet crack, and the creature screams. The sound hits like a knife driven into the center of the camp. Horses rear violently. One merchant collapses, clutching his ears. Ash barks furiously into the fog, and all 5 creatures charge at once. Roll initiative.
Roll initiative. 21. Simon rolls a 21 for initiative.
The creatures burst from the fog in all directions at once, claws tearing through mud as they slam toward the wagon ring with terrifying speed. But Simon moves first. The world narrows. Lantern light, fog, steel, movement. Training and instinct take over before panic can. One creature vaults onto the side of a wagon, claws digging deep into wood as it hauls itself upward toward a screaming merchant. Another charges directly toward a gap in the ring near Vex. A third circles wide through the mist, trying to flank the camp. The guards are still reacting. The creatures are not, but Simon is faster. Initiative order so far: Simon, 21. Creatures, pending. Caravan guards, Vex, pending. You act first. The nearest creature is climbing onto the wagon only about 15 feet away, while another is sprinting low through the mud toward the perimeter beside Vex. What does Simon do?
Simon will shoot his crossbow at the creature sprinting low through the mud towards Vex.
Simon pivots toward the charging creature near Vex, bringing up the crossbow in one smooth motion. The thing races low through the mud with terrifying speed, claws tearing trenches into the soaked road as its pale eyes lock onto the wagon gap. Simon fires. The bolt cuts through the lantern light and vanishes briefly into the fog before. The creature jerks violently as the bolt slams into its shoulder, spinning it sideways through the mud. Black, swamp-thick blood sprays across the ground. But the thing does not stop. Instead, it snaps its head towards Simon with impossible speed and lets out a shrieking hiss through broken needle teeth. The bolt is still sticking from its body, and it keeps coming. Vex braces himself. Ugly son of a bitch! The creature lunges for the wagon perimeter. Combat erupts around the circle.
Was that all of my turn, or did I have a round of surprise?
No surprise round here. The creatures revealed themselves, screamed and charged openly, so this is normal initiative combat. Your shot was your action for round 1. So far on Simon's turn, you have used action, fire crossbow at the charging creature. Movement, not meaningfully used yet beyond positioning within the wagon circle. Bonus action, still available depending on what Simon can do. Reaction, still available. You can still move, draw, swap weapons if needed. Use a bonus action if Simon has one available. Interact with an object normally. The creatures are now crashing into the wagon perimeter and combat is fully underway.
Let's see if I've got any bonus attacks or reactions. 2 weapon fighting, Wrathful Smite. Bonus action which takes immediately after hitting a creature with a melee or an unarmed strike. Second wind. Reaction, opportunity attack. So there's nothing else I can do. Should I roll initiative for Ash? Or let the round continue? Go ahead and roll for Ash. We'll say it's the same as my initiative. Ash rolls a 21 for initiative.
Ash launches into motion the instant Simon's bolt hits the charging creature. Fox fur bristling, teeth bared, he darts through the mud like a streak of red flame in the lantern light. The creatures recoil slightly at his sudden movement, their pale eyes tracking him with twitchy, predatory focus. Initiative order, Simon 21, Ash 21, creatures pending. Vex and Caravan guards pending. Since Simon and Ash tied at 21, you can choose which of the 2 acts first during the round. Simon has already taken his action, so Ash may act now with creatures if you wish. One creature is halfway onto a wagon toward terrified merchants. Another wounded creature is lunging toward Vex through the mud. The others are circling and closing through the fog. What does Ash do?
Ash will attack the creature that is halfway onto a wagon.
Ash explodes forward through the mud toward the creature climbing onto the wagon. The thing is halfway over the side now, hooked claws digging into wood, while a merchant inside screams and scrambles backward. Then Ash hits it. The fox leaps higher than should be possible for his size and clamps onto the creature's forearm with a savage snarl. The creature shrieks. Its claws tear splinters from the wagon as Ash's weight and momentum yank it sideways off the edge. Both of them crash back down into the mud. The creature thrashes violently, trying to shake Ash loose while black swamp water blood splatters across the wagon wheel. But Ash hangs on viciously. The nearby merchants stare in shock. One blurts out, "The fox is fighting it!" The creature is now prone in the mud beside the wagon, momentarily tangled with Ash instead of reaching the civilians above. Then the rest of the creatures attack.
Continue with initiative order for the combat, please.
The fog erupts with movement. Creature turn. Creature 1, wounded charger near Vex. The creature Simon shot slams into the wagon line beside Vex with terrifying force. Vex meets it head on. Steel flashes. The creature's claws rake across Vex's shield hard enough to throw sparks while Vex hacks downward with his sword, carving a deep line across its chest. The thing barely seems to notice. Instead, it twists unnaturally and lunges past him straight toward the horses. One terrified horse rears violently against its harness. Creature 2, prone beside wagon, engaged with Ash. The creature tangled with Ash shrieks and tries to tear the fox free with one clawed hand. Ash, still latched onto its arm, snaps and twists viciously. The creature struggles to regain footing, but remains partially tangled in the mud and wagon wheel. Creature 3, left flank. Another creature suddenly bursts through the fog on all fours and leaps onto the wagon ring itself. A guard barely gets his spear up in time before the thing crashes into him. Both tumble backward into the mud. The creature immediately starts clawing at his throat. Creature 4, rear wagon. A fourth creature appears almost silently behind the caravan and begins climbing onto the rear supply wagon. One merchant sees it and screams, "Behind us!" Creature 5, the Watcher. The final creature does not charge. It remains just beyond lantern range in the fog, watching. Its pale eyes remain fixed directly on Simon. Simon. It slowly begins circling the camp. Vex and guards, turn, protect the civilians. Vex roars. Crossbows fire into the fog. One bolt slams into the creature, attacking the pinned guard, staggering it briefly. Another misses completely and vanishes into the mist. A spear thrust from between the wagons catches the wounded charger in the ribs. Black blood splashes across the mud. The caravan is holding, but barely. Top of round 2, current battlefield. One creature wounded near Vex and the horses. One creature prone and engaged with Ash beside the wagon. One creature mauling a pinned guard. One creature climbing the rear wagon towards civilians. One creature circling in the fog, watching Simon's turn.
Simon will attack twice with his scimitars against the creature tangled up with Ash.
Simon drops the crossbow and surges forward, both scimitars flashing free in the lantern light. Ash is still locked onto the creature's arm as it thrashes in the mud beside the wagon wheel, shrieking and clawing wildly. Simon strikes. The first scimitar slashes downward across the creature's back with a wet, tearing sound, opening grey flesh from shoulder to spine. Black blood sprays across the mud. The creature convulses violently. Then Simon's second blade comes across low and fast. The scimitar bites deep into the creature's neck. Crack! Its head jerks sideways at an impossible angle. For one horrible second, it still twitches. Then the thing collapses fully into the mud beneath Ash, limbs spasming once before going still. Ash releases it immediately and backs away snarling, muzzle stained black. The nearby merchants stare in stunned silence. One finally blurts, "Gods above." But before anyone can celebrate, the creature watching from the fog tilts its head and smiles. Too wide, too human. The remaining creatures suddenly become far more aggressive.
Don't forget to let me roll for Simon's attacks and actions. Continue with bite after Simon's attack.
Absolutely. My mistake. You make all rolls for Simon and Ash unless you specifically ask me to handle them. Simon's twin scimitars carve into the creature, tangled with ash in a brutal flurry of steel and black blood. The thing collapses into the mud beside the wagon wheel, twitching once before going still. Ash springs backward from the corpse, snarling into the fog. But the battle is far from over. Ash's turn. Ash still has movement and action available after helping bring the creature down. Nearby threats: the wounded creature near Vex and the horses, the creature mauling a pinned guard atop the wagon line, the creature climbing onto the rear wagon toward civilians, the watcher creature circling in the fog, focused on Simon. What does Ash do? After Ash acts, the remaining creatures will continue their assault.
Ash will attack the creature climbing onto the rear wagon towards civilians. Please handle the attack roll for Ash.
Ash bolts across the muddy wagon circle the instant Simon drops the first creature. The fox darts beneath panicked horses and between wagon wheels, moving like a streak of red through lantern light and fog. The creature climbing onto the rear wagon is nearly over the edge now, one claw reaching toward a screaming merchant. Ash leaps. Ash attack roll 17 to hit. Ash slams into the creature's side and bites deep into the back of its leg. The thing screams and loses its grip on the wagon edge, crashing backward into the mud below instead of reaching the civilians above. Ash lands with it and immediately snaps again, keeping the creature occupied away from the wagon. The merchant above nearly collapses in relief. The remaining creatures react instantly. Creature turn! Wounded charger near Vex. The wounded creature near the horses finally commits fully. It lunges past Vex with horrifying speed and tears into one of the draft horses. The horse screams. Blood sprays across the mud as the beast collapses sideways into harness and wagon pole, throwing the wagon partially crooked. Damn it! Vex roars. He slashes downward hard into the creature's back. The thing staggers but keeps clawing at the dying horse like a starving animal. Ha! Creature on the wagon line. The creature mauling the pinned guard raises one hooked claw high and drives it downward into the guard's shoulder. The man screams in agony. Then the creature suddenly jerks its head towards Simon again. Simon! It knows your name! Watcher in the fog, the final creature still does not attack directly. It circles slowly just beyond lantern range, watching, smiling. Then it opens its mouth impossibly wide and emits a long, shrill cry into the fog beyond the camp. A signal where out in the darkness something answers.
Simon listens to what is being said or roared or whatever.
Simon forces himself to tune out the immediate chaos of the wagon circle for a moment. The screams, the horses, the clash of steel. Instead, he listens. The creature circling in the fog continues its shrill, unnatural cry. But now that Simon focuses on it, he realizes something horrifying. It isn't random screaming, it's patterned, like calls, signals, and from deeper in the marsh beyond the lantern light, something answers back. Not one thing, multiple, different distances, different directions, wet shrieks, low guttural clicking, the sound of claws splashing through shallow water, closing in. Vex hears it too, his face drains of color. Oh no. One of the caravan guards whispers, "There's more of them." Then Simon catches another sound beneath the creature's calls. A bell, far off through the fog. Gong! The same bell from before, only now It rings 3 times. Gong, gong, gong! The circling watcher creature abruptly stops moving. Its pale eyes lock directly onto Simon from the fog. Then it slowly backs away into the darkness instead of advancing.
How close is Simon to the creature in the fog that's watching him?
The watcher creature is staying right at the edge of the lantern light and drifting fog, roughly 35 to 40 feet from Simon at the moment, far enough that its details blur in and out through the mist, but close enough that Simon can still clearly make out its pale, reflective eyes, its too wide smile, and the way it keeps turning its head toward him specifically. It's also moving backwards slowly now, retreating deeper into the fog after the distant bell rang. The other active threats are much closer. Creature attacking the dying horse near Vex, about 10 feet. Creature mauling the pinned guard, about 15 feet. Creature engaged with Ash near the rear wagon, about 20 feet. And from the sounds in the marsh, more creatures may arrive very soon.
Simon will shoot the creature engaged with Ash with his light crossbow.
Simon pivots toward the rear wagon where Ash is tangled with the creature in the mud beneath the screaming civilians. The fox keeps the thing occupied, darting and snapping at it as it thrashes wildly, trying to regain footing. Simon raises his light crossbow through the chaos. Go ahead and roll Simon's attack roll for the shot.
Crossbow, 80 feet. Ah! Simon rolled a natural 1 on his attack roll. Does anything bad happen because of the 1?
No catastrophic fumble nonsense here. A natural 1 is simply a miss unless there's a very specific dangerous circumstance in play. And unfortunately for Simon, there is a dangerous circumstance in play. Ash is engaged in melee directly with the creature. So here's what happens. Simon fires. The bolt streaks through the lantern log toward the struggling creature, but the thing suddenly jerks sideways while Ash lunges at it. The shot goes wide. The bolt slams into the rear wagon inches from a terrified merchant's head, exploding splinters across the wagon bed. The merchant yelps and falls backward. Ash whirls briefly towards Simon with an offended fox expression that somehow communicates, "Really?" But the important part, Ash is unharmed, no ally damage. Simon simply misses badly under chaotic combat conditions. The creature snarls and keeps fighting. The battle continues.
Continue with initiative. Order, please.
Ash's turn. Ash darts sideways immediately after the missed shot, narrowly avoiding the creature's flailing claws and Simon's bolt alike. The fox circles low through the mud, trying to keep the thing focused on him instead of the civilians above. The creature snaps at Ash viciously, but fails to catch him. Creature turn, rear wagon creature, engaged with Ash. Enraged now, the creature lunges directly at Ash. Claws slash downward, but Ash twists aside at the last second, the claws carving deep furrows into the mud instead. The creature's momentum carries it partially beneath the wagon axle, momentarily exposed. Creature near Vex and the horse. The wounded creature near the horses tears another chunk from the dying draft animal before Vex finally drives his sword into its side hard enough to stagger it backward. Black blood pours from the wound. Still it refuses to fall. Vex shouts, "Why won't these things die?" Creature mauling the guard, the creature atop the wagon line abandons the wounded guard suddenly. Instead, it climbs higher onto the wagon itself, toward the civilians. One merchant tries to stab it with a small knife and gets swatted aside violently. The creature raises its head and screams into the fog again. The Watcher creature continues retreating backward into the mist, still smiling, still watching Simon. Then, it vanishes completely into the fog, but the sounds in the marsh are getting closer now, much closer. Vex and guards turn crossbows, fire again. One bolt punches into the creature near the horse. Another misses the wagon climber entirely. The pinned guard drags himself backward, bleeding heavily, while another caravan hand pulls him to safety. Vex points toward the fog where the Watcher disappeared. "Something's driving them," he shouts. "Kill the fast ones before more arrive." Then, from the darkness beyond the caravan, lantern lights appear, multiple, moving slowly through the fog toward the battle.
Simon shouts out, "Who goes there? And are you against these monsters?"
Simon's voice cuts across the battlefield. "Who goes there? Are you against these monsters?" For a moment, only fog and chaos answer him. Then one of the distant lanterns lifts slightly. A voice calls back through the mist. Old, rough, female, depends. Another lantern appears beside the first. "How attached are you to staying on this road?" The caravan goes dead quiet for half a heartbeat. Even Vex looks confused by the answer. Then the voice shouts again. "Kill the long-armed bastards first! The screamers call the others!" Immediately afterward, whip, something whistles through the fog. A black-fletched arrow slams into the creature, climbing atop the wagon toward the civilians. The thing shrieks as the arrow punches through its throat, and suddenly shapes begin emerging from the mist behind the lanterns. Humans, maybe. Hard to tell at first beneath soaked cloaks and hooded oilskins. At least 6 of them, armed, crossbows, spears, curved blades. One figure in front carries an iron handbell hanging from her belt, the same kind of bell Simon heard in the fog.
Whose turn is it in initiative order?
You are back at the top of the round, so it is now Hatch Simon's turn. Current battlefield status. Enemies, creature near Vex and the dying horse. Badly wounded but still active. Creature on the rear wagon, arrow through the throat from the newcomers, still barely moving, clawing. Creature beneath the wagon axle engaged with Ash, temporarily exposed and vulnerable. Watcher creature retreated into the fog and vanished. Additional creatures, herd approaching through the marsh but not yet visible. Allies, new arrivals. Vex and caravan guards still holding the wagon circle. Ash engaged near the rear wagon. 6 armed strangers approaching with lanterns. The older woman with the iron bell appears to be leading them. Immediate distances. Creature near Vex, 10 feet. Rear wagon creature, 20 feet. Creature beneath axle with Ash, 20 feet. Newcomers with lanterns 40, 50 feet through fog. It is Simon's action now.
Simon will move 20 feet to engage the creature attacking Ash under the axle. I will attack it twice with my scimitars.
Simon charges through the mud toward the wagon axle, lantern light flashing across drawn steel. The creature beneath the wagon twists toward him instantly, pale eyes gleaming through black swamp blood, while Ash snaps at its flank to keep it distracted. The cramped space beneath the wagon forces Simon low as he closes in with both scimitars ready. Go ahead and roll Simon's 2 attack rolls.
Scimitar 1. The first attack roll is 17. The second attack roll is 19.
Both attacks hit. Simon ducks beneath the wagon frame and strikes fast. The first scimitar slashes across the creature's ribs with a wet, tearing sound, carving open grey flesh and spraying black blood across the underside of the wagon. The thing shrieks and lashes wildly toward him, but Simon's second blade is already coming. The follow-up strike punches deep into the side of its neck. Crunch. The creature spasms violently. Ash immediately lunges with it, dragging the thing sideways into the mud as Simon's blades tear free. For a moment it tries to rise, then its limbs finally give out. The creature collapses fully beneath the wagon axle, twitching once before going still. Ash hops backward, panting and splattered with black gore, but unharmed. One of the civilians above the wagon stares down at Simon in stunned disbelief. You killed it! But there's no time to breathe, because from deeper in the marsh, more answering shrieks are getting closer.
Simon will search the area for the screeching leader of the creatures.
Simon rises from beneath the wagon axle, black blood dripping from his scimitars, and scans the fog beyond the lantern perimeter for the watcher creature, the screeching leader, the one that knew his name. The mist shifts constantly now, stirred by movement in the marsh and the panic of the battle. Lantern light stretches in broken smears across mud and reeds. Simon listens, looks, tracks movement. And then he sees it, not far, about 50 feet out beyond the wagon ring. Standing between 2 dead trees partially swallowed by fog, the watcher, perfectly still, its long pale limbs hang at unnatural angles, while its head tilts slightly towards Simon, watching him, not attacking, observing. Around it, shapes move low through the marsh grass, more creatures gathering. Then the watcher slowly lifts one clawed hand and points directly at Simon again. Behind Simon, The old woman with the lantern and iron bell steps into the wagon circle with her armed companions. The moment she sees the watcher in the fog, her face tightens. "Oh, hells," she mutters. Then louder, "That one's calling the pack! Kill it before the Myra-born fully gather!"
Continue with initiative, please.
Ash's turn. Ash shakes black blood from his muzzle and immediately turns toward the fog, where the watcher stands between the dead trees. The fox's ears flatten hard. He does not chase it. Instead, Ash stays close to Simon now, hackles raised, as if instinct is screaming not to pursue too far into the mist. Creature turn. Creature near Vex and the horse. The wounded creature beside the dying draft horse suddenly abandons the carcass and lunges at Vex with terrifying speed. Claws rake across Vex's chest armor hard enough to throw him backward into the mud. He curses violently and slashes upward, cutting deep into the creature's abdomen. Black entrails spill steaming into the cold air. Still, the thing keeps fighting. Rear wagon creature. The arrow-pinned creature atop the rear wagon gives one last twitching scream and throws itself at a civilian. A caravan guard intercepts it with a spear thrust through the chest. The creature collapses off the wagon to the mud below, dead. The watcher creature remains beyond the lantern light, watching Simon. Then it emits another shrill cry into the fog. Immediately, answering shrieks erupt much closer now. Too close. Shapes begin emerging in the marsh grass beyond the wagons. 3, 4, maybe more. Fast-moving, pale forms racing low through the mist toward the camp. Newcomer's turn. The old woman with the iron bell raises a curved blade and points directly toward the watcher. "That one dies first." Her people move with practiced efficiency. 2 crossbows fire into the fog. 1 bolt misses. The second hits the watcher in the shoulder. For the first time, the creature reacts with visible anger. Its smile disappears. Then the old woman rings her iron bell once. Gong! The sound is different from the others, sharper. The charging creatures in the marsh recoil violently at the noise. Interesting. Aha! Vex and Caravan. Turn Vex regains his footing and shouts, "Simon, if that thing's leading them, kill it now before the rest arrive." The caravan circle tightens further as civilians scramble for cover. The fog beyond the camp is now full of movement.
How far away is the watcher from Simon?
The watcher is now about 50 feet from Simon. It's standing beyond the outer lantern glow between the dead trees in the marsh fog. Visibility is poor, but Simon can still clearly make out its pale, reflective eyes, elongated limbs, and its fixed attention on him specifically. Important battlefield note: the watcher currently has partial concealment from fog and reeds. Multiple new Myra-born creatures are now emerging between Simon and the watcher, though they have not fully reached melee range yet. The old woman's bell visibly disrupted the charging creatures when she rang it.
Simon will scream, ring the bell again. He then will move. What is my movement? 30 feet. Toward the watcher and fire his light crossbow at the creature's throat. trying to silence him.
The old woman's eyes snap towards Simon the instant he shouts, "Ring the bell again!" Understanding flashes across her face immediately. "Gladly," she growls. Simon surges forward through the mud and fog, closing the distance toward the Watcher while drawing up his light crossbow. The Myra-born rushing through the marsh recoil and twitch uneasily as the old woman raises the iron bell again behind him. The Watcher sees Simon advancing. Its pale eyes widen slightly. Its jaw begins opening for another shriek. The bell rings. Gong! The sound cuts through the marsh like a blade. The charging Maya-born creatures falter violently, clawing at their own heads and shrieking in pain. Even the Watcher recoils slightly. Perfect opening. Simon plants his feet in the mud, levels the crossbow toward the creature's throat through the drifting fog. Roll Simon's attack roll.
Please be good. 14. Simon rolled a 14 to hit.
The bolt flies straight through the fog toward the Watcher's exposed throat. For a split second, it looks perfect. Then the creature jerks sideways with horrifying speed at the very last instant. The bolt tears through the side of its neck instead of the throat. Thunk. Black blood sprays across the dead tree behind it. The Watcher screams. Not the shrill summoning cry from before. This is pain. Real pain. It staggers backward, clutching at the wound, while the old woman's bell continues ringing behind Simon. Gong! Gong! The advancing Maya-born recoil harder now, movements becoming jerky and disorganized as though the sound physically hurts them. The Watcher glares at Simon with naked hatred now. Its mouth moves. Not a scream this time. Words. You. Then it abruptly turns and begins retreating deeper into the fog. Fast. Very fast. Behind Simon, Vex shouts, "It's running!" But the marsh around the caravan is still alive with incoming creatures.
Whose turn is it now?
Simon has completed his turn. Current initiative flow. Simon acted. Ash's turn is next. Then remaining Maya-born creatures. Then the Bellwoman's group. Then Vex caravan defenders. Current battlefield situation. The Watcher is wounded and retreating deeper into the fog. Several incoming Maya-born are disrupted, staggered by the bell. Simon is now about 20 feet ahead of the wagon circle after advancing toward the Watcher. Ash is still near the wagon perimeter, close to the caravan. Vex and the others are trying to hold the defensive ring together. Ash acts now.
Where are the creatures that Ash can attack on his turn?
Ash currently has several possible targets, depending on whether you want him protecting the caravan or helping pursue the Watcher. Current enemy positions. The 1, incoming Maya-born pack. Distance from Ash, about 20 to 30 feet. Location, emerging from the marsh around the wagon circle. Status, temporarily disoriented by the bell. These are the new creatures rushing in through the fog. They're not fully inside the perimeter yet, but they're closing fast and are the most immediate threat to civilians. This is the easiest target for Ash to engage immediately. Matash Ash 2, wounded creature fighting Vex. Distance from Ash, about 25 feet. Location, near the dying draft horse at the wagon perimeter. Status, heavily wounded, but still active. Still dangerous and currently focused on Vex. 3. The Watcher, distance from Ash, about 70 feet, location, retreating deeper into the fog beyond. Simon's status, wounded and fleeing. Ash could theoretically chase it, but it would take a full sprint. He'd leave the caravan perimeter, and there are additional Myraborn between him and the Watcher. Also worth noting, Ash's instincts earlier strongly suggested he did not want to pursue too deep into the fog.
Ash will attack the wounded creature that's attacking Vex currently.
Ash explodes into motion the instant Simon's bolt drives the Watcher backward into the fog. The fox tears across the muddy perimeter toward the creature battling Vex beside the dying draft horse. The Myraborn turns just in time to see red fur and flashing teeth coming straight at its face. Ash attack roll 22 to hit. Ash hits hard. He leaps upward and clamps onto the creature's wounded side, exactly where Vex's sword tore it open moments earlier. The Myraborn screams. Black blood bursts across the mud as Ash's weight and bite drag the creature sideways off balance. Vex immediately capitalizes. Good fox! He drives his sword straight through the creature's chest. The Myraborn convulses violently once, then collapses into the mud beside the dying horse. Dead. Vex yanks his blade free, breathing hard. That's one less ugly bastard. But beyond the lantern light, more pale shapes are still closing through the fog.
Continue with initiative order, please.
Myraborn. Turn the bell continues ringing through the fog. Gong! Gong! The sound disrupts the incoming Myraborn pack badly, but not enough to stop them completely. 3 pale shapes burst from the marsh almost simultaneously. Myraborn 1. This creature lunges directly at the wagon line near a cluster of civilians. A caravan guard intercepts it with a spear thrust. But the Myraborn grabs the spear shaft and snaps it in half with horrifying strength before slamming into him. Both disappear into the mud beside the wagon wheel. 2. Another creature charges low towards Simon from the fog. It bounds through reeds and swamp water on all fours, shrieking in rage after seeing the Watcher wounded. Because Simon advanced forward, it reaches him first. It leaps. Roll me a dexterity saving throw for Simon to avoid being bowled over by the charging Myraborn.
Dexterity saving throw. 19. I rolled a 19 dex save.
The Myraborn launches through the fog straight at Simon like a starving wolf, but Simon sees it coming at the last instant. He pivots sideways through the mud as the creature crashes past him instead of slamming him to the ground. Its claws rake sparks off his armor as it misses by inches. The creature lands badly, skidding through wet earth before twisting around unnaturally fast to face him again. Now it's between Simon and the retreating Watcher. Myraborn 3. The third creature recoils violently when the bell rings again. Instead of charging, it circles wide through the reeds looking for another angle into the caravan. Additional movement in the fog. More shrieks answer deeper in the marsh. Not immediate yet, but the Watcher's call reached farther than anyone hoped. The bell woman and hunters. Turn the old woman and continues ringing the iron bell rhythmically while her hunters advance outward from the wagon circle in disciplined formation. Keep the bell sounding, she shouts. One hunter fires a crossbow into the Myraborn, attacking Simon. The bolt misses narrowly and vanishes into the fog. Another drives a spear into the creature, mauling the caravan guard near the wagon. The creature shrieks and retreats backward into the mud. The old woman herself locks eyes briefly with Simon. "Don't chase the caller alone," she warns. "Vex and Caravan. Turn Vex rallies the defenders immediately. Hold the circle. Don't break formation." The remaining guards tighten around the civilians while trying desperately not to panic at the sounds still moving through the marsh. The wounded horse finally collapses completely. One wagon tilts awkwardly from the shifted harness. Visibility is worsening again as thicker fog rolls in around the camp. Top of round. It is now Simon's turn again. Current situation. One Myraborn is in melee with Simon about 20 feet ahead of the caravan. The Watcher is retreating deeper into fog, roughly another 30 to 40 feet beyond that creature. Additional Myraborn sounds are approaching in the distance. Ash is near Vex after helping kill the wounded Myraborn. The bell remains active and appears highly effective against these creatures.
Simon will attack the Myreborn that is in melee range of him with two of his scimitars.
The Myraborn twists towards Simon on all fours, pale eyes blazing in the fog as black saliva drips from its needle-filled mouth. It hisses through broken human-like teeth. Seaman. Simon draws both scimitars up into guard position as the bell echoes across the marsh behind him. Gong! The creature flinches at the sound. Perfect opening. Roll Simon's 2 attack rolls with the scimitars.
Scimitar 1. 23. First attack roll is a 23. The second attack roll is a 15.
Both attacks hit. Simon moves with brutal precision. The first scimitar flashes downward in a hard diagonal strike that tears across the Myreborn's chest, splitting grey flesh open from shoulder to ribs. Black blood sprays hot across the fog and mud. The creature shrieks and tries to lunge anyway, but Simon's second blade comes across low and fast. The scimitar slices deep through one of its forearms, nearly to the bone. Crack! The limb hangs uselessly as the creature staggers backwards, screeching in agony. Still alive. Barely. Its pale eyes burn with hatred as it sways in the fog directly in front of Simon. And deeper beyond it, Simon can still just barely make out the Watcher retreating through the marsh between the dead trees.
Do I need to roll damage for the scimitar attacks?
Yes, absolutely. I should have stopped after confirming the hits. Go ahead and roll damage for both scimitar attacks separately, and let me know the totals for first hit damage, second hit damage. Then we'll resolve whether the Myraborn survives the combo or gets turned into wet roadside regret.
The first damage roll is 6, and the second roll is 4 damage.
Simon's scimitars carve through the Myroborn in a vicious 1-2 combination. The first strike rips open its chest, spilling black, swamp-thick blood across the second hacks deep into its arm and shoulder with a sickening crack of bone. The creature staggers backwards, shrieking, but it does not fall. Barely standing now, the Myroborn sways in front of Simon, one arm hanging ruined at its side, while hatred burns in its pale eyes. Then it opens its mouth again, not to attack, to scream. A long, shrill cry erupts from its throat toward the fog beyond Simon, and from somewhere deeper in the marsh, something big answers. Not a shriek, a roar, low, wet, heavy enough that Simon feels it through the mud beneath his boots. Behind him, several of the hunters freeze. One whispers, "Mother of Mercy."
Continue with initiative, please.
Ash's turn. Ash hears the deep answering roar from the marsh and immediately snaps his head toward the sound. Every instinct in the fox screams danger. But instead of retreating, Ash bolts forward through the fog towards Simon. The fox skids into position near Simon's side, teeth bared at the barely standing Myroborn. Ash does not attack yet. He's focused on the darkness beyond it, watching, waiting. Myroborn turn. Wounded Myroborn engaged with Simon. The mutilated creature in front of Simon suddenly lunges to spite its shattered arm. Desperate, suicidal, its claws slash wildly towards Simon's throat. Roll Simon's armor class check outcome. What is Simon's AC currently?
Simon's AC is 15. Simon's AC is 15.
The Myroborn lashes out in a frenzy of claws and black blood. One hooked hand scrapes across Simon's armor with a shower of sparks, but the killing strike misses cleanly as Simon twists aside at the last instant. The creature overextends badly, nearly collapsing from its own wounds. Still alive, still screaming. Movement in the fog, then the marsh ahead explodes. Trees shake, water splashes violently. Something enormous is moving toward the fight now. Not fast. Heavy. Deliberate. The watcher creature briefly appears again farther back in the fog between dead trees. It pauses long enough to look directly at Simon one more time. Then it disappears completely into the marsh darkness, and the approaching heavy thing keeps coming. Bellwoman and hunters turn. The old woman hears the massive movement too. Her expression hardens instantly. "Oh no, 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 no," she rings the bell harder now. "Gun! Gun! Gun!" The nearby Myroborn recoil violently from the sound. One collapses, thrashing in the mud near the wagon line. The hunters begin pulling back toward the caravan defensively now instead of advancing. One of them shouts, "Maeve, we need to leave." So the bellwoman's name is Maeve. Maeve points directly towards Simon. "Get him back inside the ring now." A hunter with a crossbow fires at the Myroborn fighting Simon. The bolt hits straight through the creature's eye. The Myroborn collapses dead at Simon's feet. Vex and Caravan turn. Vex hears the massive thing approaching and finally looks genuinely alarmed. "Simon," he shouts, "back to the wagons, now!" The remaining defenders begin tightening the circle while panicked civilians scramble aboard wagons. The bell continues ringing desperately through the fog, and the huge thing in the marsh keeps getting closer.
Simon comes back to the caravan and mounts his horse. How many creatures are within melee range of Simon now?
Simon falls back through the mud with Ash beside him while the bell continues echoing across the fog-choked road.
Come on! Thunder!
The caravan defenders hurriedly pull him back inside the wagon ring as he mounts his horse again. The animal is terrified but manageable, stamping nervously while fog curls around its legs. Right now, creatures within Simon's immediate melee range, none. The Mireborn directly fighting Simon was killed by the hunter's crossbow shot. Closest active threats: 1. Mireborn near the wagon line, about 15 feet away. One surviving Mireborn is still circling the perimeter near the damaged wagon and probing for an opening. 2. Additional shapes in the fog, roughly 30 to 60 feet out. Multiple moving forms can still be heard and occasionally glimpsed through the mist, but they have not committed to a full charge while the bell keeps ringing. 3. The massive creature unknown, exact position, but very close now. You can hear trees cracking, heavy movement through swamp water, and deep breathing somewhere in the fog beyond the road. Everyone can hear it. Nobody wants to see it.
Simon will use 15 feet of movement to attack the Mireborn near the wagon line. Then attack the Mireborn near the wagon. There we go.
Simon spurs his horse forward through the muddy wagon circle, closing the distance from the Mireborn stalking near the damaged wagon. The creature turns sharply toward him, pale eyes reflecting lantern light, as the bell continues ringing through the fog. It hisses and lowers itself like a predatory animal preparing to spring. Ash races alongside the horse, snarling. Simon rides into melee range. Roll Simon's attack rolls against the Mireborn.
First scimitar attack. It's a 20. First attack roll is a 20. The second attack roll is $16.
Both attacks hit. Mounted atop the nervous horse, Simon strikes downward with ruthless speed. The first scimitar slams into the Mireborn's shoulder and drives deep, nearly cutting through the creature entirely as black blood erupts across the wagon wheel beside it. The creature shrieks and lashes upward, but Simon's second strike comes immediately after. The second blade tears across its throat in a brutal horizontal slash. Crack! The Mireborn's head jerks sideways unnaturally. It collapses backward and into the mud beneath the horse's hooves. Dead. The nearby caravan guards stare at Simon with a mixture of relief and outright fear now. One mutters, "He's cutting through them like a damn executioner." But then the fog ahead parts slightly and everyone sees the silhouette approaching through the marsh. Huge, at least twice the height of a man, broad shoulders, long dragging arms, and pale white eyes glowing in the darkness above the reeds. Even Maeve stops ringing the bell for half a second. "Gods preserve us," she whispers.
Whose turn is it in initiative?
Simon has completed his turn. Current initiative order now proceeds to Ash's turn. After Ash, remaining Mireborn's incoming threats: the massive creature, Maeve and the Hunters, Vex and Caravan Defenders. Current battlefield status: no Mireborn currently in melee with Simon. One visible Mireborn was just killed by Simon near the wagon line. Additional lesser Mireborn remain somewhere in the fog, but are hesitating because of the bell. The massive creature has now visually appeared in the marsh and is approaching the caravan. Simon is mounted again within the wagon circle. Ash is near Simon and the horse. Ash acts now.
Ash will stay with Simon so they don't get separated. Ash observes the huge creature coming out of the fog.
Ash remains tight beside Simon's horse, pacing anxiously through the mud instead of charging ahead. The fox's ears flatten completely as he stares into the fog at the approaching giant shape. Low growls rumble continuously from his throat now. Not aggression, fear, real fear. The massive creature finally steps fully into the lantern glow, and the entire caravan recoils. The thing is enormous, standing nearly 10 feet tall, even while hunched forward. Its skin is corpse pale and swollen like something drowned long ago and left bloating beneath swamp water. Long arms drag almost to the ground, ending in massive clawed hands caked with mud and reeds. Its face, gods. Its face barely looks human anymore. The jaw hangs too wide. The eyes glow dead white. Wet black fluid pours constantly from its mouth and chest, and embedded all across its flesh, human faces, half-formed, stretching and writhing beneath the skin as though trapped inside it. Some are screaming silently, some appear to be sleeping. One briefly opens its eyes and looks directly at Simon before sinking back beneath the flesh. The caravan erupts into horrified panic. What is that thing? Back! Back! Maeve, ring the damn bell! Maeve immediately rings the iron bell again. Gong! The huge creature visibly recoils at the sound, but unlike the smaller Mireborn, it keeps advancing anyway.
What happens next with initiative?
Mireborn and massive creature turn. The remaining lesser Mireborn in the fog begin circling wider now instead of rushing directly into the bell's sound. They're adapting, smart enough to avoid the worst of it. That realization terrifies everyone far more than mindless monsters would. Then the huge creature moves, not quickly, but with horrifying purpose. Each step sinks deep into the mud as it advances toward the wagon circle, while the trapped faces beneath its flesh writhe and twitch. Gong! Maeve rings the bell again. The giant creature recoils visibly. Its enormous claws rise to cover part of its face as a deep, pained groan rolls from its chest. But it does not stop. Instead, it points one massive claw towards Simon, and every lesser Mireborn in the fog suddenly turns toward him simultaneously. The thing knows who hurt the Watcher. The thing roars. The sound hits the camp like a physical blow. Horses rear violently. One lantern shatters. Civilians scream. Then the giant charges. Mud explodes beneath its feet as the creature barrels toward the wagon ring with impossible speed for something so massive. Maeve and hunters turn. Brace! Maeve screams. Her hunters lower spears desperately while she rings the bell continuously. Now.
Gong! Gong!
One hunter fires a crossbow bolt into the giant's chest. The bolt sinks in and barely seems to matter. Another hunter shouts, "It's not stopping!" Vex and Caravan turn Vex wheels towards Simon immediately. If that thing hits the wagons, we're done. Guards brace shields between the creature and the civilians. Several look like they already know it won't be enough. The giant closes rapidly through the fog. Top of round, Simon's turn. The giant Myraborn is now about 20 feet away and charging directly toward the wagon line. The bell is hurting it, but not stopping it.
Let's see what spells I've got. Chill Touch, Dancing Lights, Firebolt, Thaumaturgy, Toll the Dead, Detect Magic, False Sight, Find Familiar, Wrathful Smite, Invisibility, Rave, Enfeeblement. Once per long rest. One action, 60 feet, VS, concentration up to a minute. Concentration 16. A beam of enervating energy shoots from you toward a creature within range. That creature must make a Constitution saving throw. On a successful save, the target has disadvantage with the next attack full of mace until the start of your next turn. On a failed save, the target has disadvantage on a strength-based d20 test for its duration. During that count, it also subtracts 1d8 from all its damage rolls. The target repeats its save at the end of each of its turn, ending the spell on a success. Simon casts Ray of Enfeeblement on the giant Myraborn.
Simon raises one hand toward the charging giant as the wagon circle descends into panic around him. The creature barrels forward through mud and fog, dead white eyes fixed entirely on him, while the trapped faces beneath its flesh writhe in agony beneath the bells tolling. Gong! Gong! Dark energy gathers around Simon's hand as he begins casting A of Enfeeblement toward the massive Myraborn. The black ray lashes outward through the lantern-lit fog toward the creature's chest. Go ahead and roll Simon's spell attack roll.
The giant needs to make a Constitution saving throw with a difficulty of 16.
The black ray streaks through the fog and slams directly into the giant Myraborn's chest. Necrotic shadows spread instantly across its swollen, corpse-pale flesh like veins of ink beneath dead skin. The trapped faces writhing inside its body suddenly begin screaming silently in unison. The giant staggers mid-charge. Its muscles convulse violently as the magic drains strength from its massive frame. The creature attempts to resist the spell. Constitution saving throw? 11 failure, the enfeebling magic takes hold. The giant roars in fury as its movements become sluggish and strained, massive claws trembling while black fluid pours from its mouth. Maeve sees it immediately. It's weakening, she shouts. Even so, the thing is still coming, but now its blows will carry far less killing force if it reaches the wagons.
That's Simon's turn for this round. Ash will attempt to attack the giant Mireborn if he thinks he can do damage to it.
Ash stares at the towering Mireborn as it charges through the fog toward the wagon line. The fox's instincts are screaming at him to stay away from this, but Simon is standing his ground, and that settles it. Ash bolts forward through the mud, with a furious snarting directly toward the giant creature's legs as Maeve's bell continues hammering through the marsh. Gong! The giant Mireborn barely notices the fox until the last instant. Then Ash leaps. Ash attack roll, 18 to hit. Ash hits. The fox clamps onto the creature's lower leg and tears viciously at the swollen flesh. Black fluid sprays from the wound as the giant roars in fury and stumbles slightly under the combined effects of the bell, Simon's weakening spell, and Ash harrying its legs. It's not enough to stop the monster, but it is enough to slow it further. And for the first time, the caravan defenders begin to realize this thing might actually be killable.
Continue with initiative order, please.
Giant Mireborn. Turn. The giant Mireborn bellows in fury as Ash tears into its leg and Simon's magic weakens its massive body. The trapped faces beneath its flesh writhe violently now, some screaming silently, others clawing outward beneath the skin. Then the creature reaches the wagon line. Shields! Vex roars. The guards brace. The giant slams into the barricade. Even weakened, the impact is catastrophic. A wagon lifts partially off the ground as the creature crashes into it. Wood splinters. One guard is hurled bodily through the air into the mud. But Simon's ray of enfeeblement clearly matters. The blow should have shattered the entire wagon apart. Instead, the creature staggers from the effort, breathing heavily through black fluid pouring from its mouth. Maeve keeps ringing the bell desperately. Gun! Gun! The giant recoils at every toll, visibly pained. Then one enormous claw lashes downward toward Ash. Giant Mireborn attack versus Ash, 14 to hit. Ash barely escapes. The claw smashes into the mud beside him with enough force to crater the ground, spraying swamp water and shattered wood everywhere as the fox darts aside at the last instant. Hash lesser Mireborn movement. The smaller Mireborn begin moving again through the fog, circling wider around the bell's radius. One slips closer toward the rear wagons. Another prowls through reeds looking for isolated prey. They're trying to flank now instead of frontal assault. Maeve and hunters. Turn. Maeve points directly at the giant. Keep pressure on it. Her hunters unleash crossbows and spears. Several attacks hit and bolt sinks into the giant's shoulder. A spear pierces its side. Another bolt embeds in one of the screaming faces beneath the skin. The face vanishes beneath the flesh with a silent scream. The giant roars again in agony. Interesting. The trapped faces might be weak points. Maeve notices Simon seeing this. Hit the faces, she shouts. Whatever that thing is, the souls inside it are fighting back. Vex and Caravan. Turn. Vex regains footing near the shattered wagon line and rallies the defenders. Protect the gap. Guards rush to stop civilians from panicking, while others try desperately to reinforce the damaged wagon. The Caravan is still holding. Barely. Hack top of round, Simon's turn again. Current battlefield. Giant Mireborn is at the wagon line within melee range of Ash and roughly 15 feet from Simon. The giant is weakened by ray of enfeeblement. Several lesser Mireborn are attempting to flank through the fog. The trapped faces on the giant appear vulnerable. The bell is still active, but the giant is resisting its effect through sheer force.
Simon will ride 15 feet to face the giant. He makes 2 attacks with his scimitars.
Simon spurs his horse forward through the muddy chaos toward the shattered wagon line. The giant Myraborn towers above the defenders, black fluid pouring from its wounds, while the trapped human faces writhe beneath its corpse, pale flesh. One face briefly emerges near its shoulder, mouth open in a silent scream. Maeve's warning echoes in Simon's mind. Hit the faces! Simon closes into melee range atop his horse, both scimitars raised as the bell continues ringing through the fog. Gong! The giant turns its dead white eyes toward him. Roll Simon's 2 attack rolls.
Scimitar 1. Scimitar 1 rolls a natural 1 for attack, while the second attack rolls a 21.
The first strike goes badly. Simon swings downward from horseback toward one of the writhing faces beneath the giant's shoulder, but the horse shifts violently as the giant slams into the wagon line again. The scimitar glances off shattered wagon wood instead of flesh with a shower of sparks and splinters. No self-inflicted catastrophe, just a bad miss in brutal conditions. But Simon's second strike lands clean. The second scimitar cuts deep into one of the screaming faces embedded in the creature's upper chest. The moment the blade pierces it, the face screams! Not silently this time. A real human scream erupts from the giant's body. The Myraborn convulses violently. Every trapped face beneath its flesh begins writhing at once. The giant staggers backward, roaring in agony as black fluid gushes from the wound. Maeve shouts triumphantly, "That hurt it!" Then something horrifying happens. The wounded face beneath the blade looks directly at Simon and whispers, "Help us." The giant Myraborn suddenly grabs its own chest with one enormous claw, as though fighting against itself internally.
What do you want me to do? Simon asks the face.
For a split second, the battle around Simon seems to fade beneath the bell's echo and the giant's agonized roar. The embedded face writhes beneath the creature's flesh, barely visible through black fluid and torn skin where Simon's blade struck. Its eyes lock onto his, human eyes. Terrified. Free. It gasps. The giant immediately convulses violently, as though reacting to the words. One enormous claw slams against its own chest repeatedly. Thud! Thud! The trapped faces beneath its flesh begin screaming silently again. The one speaking to Simon strains desperately against the skin imprisoning it. Inside, its expression twists in pain. Burn. Then the giant roars loud enough to shake the wagons. The speaking face is dragged back beneath the flesh as if pulled underwater. The creature's dead white eyes snap back towards Simon with renewed fury. It knows what just happened. Maeve hears enough to understand part of it. Her face pales. Gods preserve us, she whispers. It's wearing the dead.
Whose turn is it in initiative?
Simon has completed his turn. Current initiative order now moves to Ash's turn. After Ash, Giant Myraborn, Lesser Myraborn flankers, Meven hunters, Vex and Caravan defenders. Current battlefield snapshot. Simon is now in melee with the giant atop his horse. The giant is weakened by Ray of Enfeeblement. One embedded face spoke directly to Simon and implied the trapped souls are inside the creature. The giant reacted violently when the face spoke. Ash is near the giant's legs. Lesser Myraborn are circling the caravan perimeter through the fog. The bell is still active.
Ash will leap at the giant and make an attack against him.
Ash snarls and launches himself upward at the towering Myraborn again, completely undeterred by the creature's size. The giant is still clutching at its own chest from Simon's strike when the fox leaps through the lantern light toward another writhing face beneath the flesh. Ash attack roll, 24 to hit. Ash hits hard. The fox bites deep into the creature's side, exactly where another distorted human face pushes outward beneath the skin. The moment Ash tears into it, another human scream erupts from inside the giant. Not monstrous, human. The giant Myraborn convulses violently, nearly losing balance as the trapped faces beneath its flesh begin thrashing in panic. Several push outward visibly now beneath the skin like drowning people trying to break through ice. Maeve stares in horror. The souls are alive in there. The giant suddenly grabs at Ash with one massive claw in blind fury.
Continue with initiative, please.
Giant Myraborn. Turn, the giant Myraborn howls in agony as Ash tears into another trapped face beneath its flesh. The thing is no longer fighting cleanly now, it's unraveling. One massive claw lashes wildly toward Ash, while the other claws desperately at its own body as though trying to hold itself together. Attack versus Ash, 12 to hit. Ash twists away again at the last second, the claws smashing into the mud beside him hard enough to crack the ground. But then the giant does something worse. It grabs one of the writhing faces beneath its own chest and rips. Flesh tears open with a horrible wet sound. A pale human-shaped form partially drags itself free from inside the creature before collapsing bonelessly into the mud. Dead. Or maybe already dead long ago. The giant roars again. For a moment, it actually seems weaker. Its movements slow further. The bell sound suddenly affects it much more strongly now. The creature recoils violently from the ringing. Maeve realizes it too. "Keep cutting the faces free," she shouts. "The thing's stitched together from souls." Lesser Myraborn. Turn, the smaller Myraborn finally commit to the flanks. Two creatures burst from the fog near the rear wagon and slam into caravan defenders. One guard is dragged screaming into the reeds before anyone can stop it. Another Myraborn leaps onto a wagon roof and shrieks down at the civilians. Panic erupts again across the caravan. Maeve and hunters turn. Maeve points at the giant's torn open chest.
There!
Her hunters focus fire immediately. Crossbow bolts punch into exposed flesh and writhing faces beneath the skin. Every hit causes another burst of human screaming from inside the giant. One hunter drives a spear into the open wound Ash created. The giant staggers heavily now. Black fluid pours from dozens of wounds. Still, it refuses to fall. Maeve rings the bell again directly in its face.
Gun!
The giant recoils backward with a deafening scream. Vex and Caravan turn. Vex rallies defenders against the flank attack. Don't let them split us. Guards scramble toward the rear wagons while civilians huddle low behind crates and shattered wood. The caravan is holding together by pure desperation now. Top of round, Simon's turn. Current battlefield. Simon is in melee with the giant atop his horse. The giant is heavily wounded and destabilizing. Exposed trapped souls' faces are clearly weak points. Two lesser Mireborn are attacking the rear of the caravan. One Mireborn is on top of a wagon, terrorizing civilians. The bell is devastating the giant more effectively now that its body is opening apart.
I think I want to cast Firebolt. Simon casts Firebolt at the giant. He rolls a 26 to hit.
Simon raises one hand from atop the horse as the giant Mireborn staggers beneath the tolling bell and the screaming trapped souls writhing under torn flesh. Flame gathers instantly in his palm. Then, whoosh! The firebolt streaks through the fog like a comet and slams directly into the giant's exposed chest wound. A 26 hits easily. The fire erupts inside the creature, not just on it, inside it. For one horrifying instant, the torn cavity beneath the flesh glows bright orange from within, and every trapped face inside the giant screams simultaneously. The giant Mireborn convulses violently. Black fluid ignites. Flames spread rapidly across the exposed soul flesh beneath its ribs. Then the thing lets out one final impossible roar. The trapped faces begin tearing free from the creature's body all at once. Not physically, spiritually. Pale, ghost-like forms rip upward through the burning flesh like smoke escaping a furnace. Dozens, men, women, children, all screaming. The giant collapses to its knees hard enough to shake the wagon line. Maeve stares in shock. You're burning the prison. The creature tries to rise again, but the bell rings one more time. Gong! And the giant's body suddenly splits apart down the chest. Black fire erupts outward. The trapped spirits burst free into the fog like a storm of pale birds. The enormous Mireborn crashes fully into the mud, dead. The remaining lesser Mireborn throughout the fog immediately begin shrieking in panic.
Next in initiative, please.
Ash's turn. Ash immediately backs away from the collapsing giant as black fire and screaming spirits erupt from the splitting corpse. The fox snarls at the escaping lesser Mireborn, now racing through the fog in panic. The smaller creatures are no longer coordinated. The Watcher is gone. The giant is dead. Whatever controlled the pack has broken. Ash focuses on the nearest active threat, the Mireborn atop the wagon terrorizing civilians. The fox bolts toward the wagon through smoke, mud, and drifting spirits. Ash attack roll, 19 to hit. Ash leaps upward and tears into the creature's leg, dragging it partly off balance atop the wagon roof. The thing shrieks and claws wildly, trying not to fall. Lesser Mireborn turn. The remaining creatures are panicking now. Wagon top Mireborn. Already harried by Ash, the creature loses footing completely and tumbles from the wagon roof into the mud below. A waiting caravan guard immediately drives a spear into it, dead. Hash rear flank Myraborn. The creature dragging the guard into the reeds abruptly releases him and flees deeper into the fog. Another Myraborn follows moments later. Not tactical retreat. Fear. The bell still rings and the giant's corpse still burns. The remaining creatures are breaking. Maeve and hunters turn. Maeve lowers the bell slowly, staring at the burning corpse in disbelief. The freed spirits continue spiraling upward into the fog like pale smoke. One of her hunters whispers, "They were people." Maeve finally looks toward Simon. "No," she says quietly. "Worse." She gestures toward the burning remains. "They still are." Her hunters cautiously begin scanning the fog for returning Myraborn, but none immediately charge back in. Vex and Caravan turn. Vex wipes black blood from his sword and stares at the giant corpse. "I fought bandits, raiders, even swamp trolls," he mutters. Then he looks at Simon. "But I've never seen anything like you." Around the wagon circle, defenders begin helping wounded civilians, while others nervously watch the fog line. The battle appears to be ending, but the marsh has gone eerily quiet now. Too quiet.
Is it time to set up camp for the night? Or is there still travel time before then?
Vex looks out into the fog where the surviving Myraborn fled, then down at the shattered wagon line, the dead horse, and the burning remains of the giant creature. "We're done traveling tonight," he says flatly. Nobody argues. Not after this. The caravan is exhausted, wounded, and shaken half to death. One wagon axle is damaged, a horse is dead, and several guards are injured badly enough they can barely stand. Maeve agrees immediately. "You keep moving after something like this?" She says, "You walk straight into the next nightmare, too tired to fight it." The hunters begin helping establish a hardened camp perimeter around the wagon circle, while guards drag corpses away from the immediate camp area. The giant Myraborn continues burning unnaturally in the marsh mud. The fire is not normal flame anymore. It burns pale blue-white now. And every so often, another faint human-shaped spirit pulls itself free from the corpse and disappears silently into the night sky. Ash refuses to go near it. The fox stays tight beside Simon's horse, ears flicking constantly toward the fog. Vex approaches Simon quietly while the others work. "You realize," he says, glancing toward the burning corpse, "most people are going to think we're liars when we tell this story. A beat. Assuming we survive long enough to tell it."
Simon helps set up camp for the evening, keeping a watch out for any returning Myraborn.
Simon spends the next hour helping reinforce the shattered wagon circle while the camp settles into a tense, exhausted silence. The wagons are repositioned tighter together. Broken boards are patched as best they can be. Lanterns are hung higher to push back the fog, though nobody feels particularly safer because of it. The dead are counted, the wounded are bandaged, and every few minutes someone glances nervously toward the burning giant corpse in the marsh. The pale fire still burns, steady, wrong. Maeve's hunters move through the camp with practiced efficiency, setting small iron charms near the perimeter and hanging thin strings of bells between wagon gaps. Simon notices something important. The hunters are treating this like a known danger, not a new one. Ash remains alert the entire time, constantly pacing the edge of camp and sniffing the fog line, but no Myraborn return, not openly anyway. Once, late into the setup, Simon catches movement far beyond the lantern glow, a pale figure standing motionless between the trees, watching. Gone the moment he focuses on it. The watcher? maybe. Or maybe exhaustion playing tricks. Eventually, Maeve approaches Simon near the fire. Up close, she looks older than he first thought. Grey streaks cut through her dark hair, and the skin around her eyes is weathered hard by years on the road. The iron bell hangs at her hip. "You hurt their caller?" she says quietly, not a question. That's why the pack broke. Her eyes drift toward the burning giant. And that, she exhales slowly, that thing shouldn't exist at all.
What is it then? If it shouldn't exist.
Maeve stares at the burning corpse for a long moment before answering. The pale fire reflects in her tired eyes. "I don't know its true name," she admits. "Most people who encounter one don't survive long enough to ask." She kneels near the fire and pulls off one glove, flexing scarred fingers stiff from old wounds. "But I know what creates them." Her gaze shifts towards Simon. Myraborn start as people taken by the marsh. Travellers, caravans, villages sometimes. "The swamp changes them," she pauses. "Or something in the swamp does." The distant fog shifts softly beyond camp. The small ones are bad enough. Half-drowned souls stuffed back into dead flesh with just enough mind left to hunt. She gestures toward the giant. But that thing, another spirit peels silently from the burning corpse behind her. That was many souls forced together into one body, a prison made of dead people. Simon remembers the trapped face whispering, "Help us." Maeve notices the look in his eyes immediately. "You heard them, didn't you? Not fear, recognition," she nods grimly. "They're alive in there, in a manner of speaking." The fire crackles sharply. "The mire doesn't just kill people, Simon." Her voice lowers. "It keeps them."
What should we do with the body of the giant?
Maeve looks back toward the burning corpse in the marsh. The giant Myraborn has partially collapsed inward now, its enormous body slowly caving in on itself as pale blue-white flames continue consuming it from within. Another faint spirit slips upward from the burning flesh and disappears into the fog-dark sky. "We do not bury it," Maeve says immediately. Her tone leaves no room for debate. "We do not cut it apart. We do not drag it closer to camp." She rises slowly, resting one hand on the iron bell at her hip. "We let it burn." Vex, standing nearby, listening quietly, folds his arms. "That enough?" Maeve nods once. "If the fire keeps burning until dawn, yes. And if it doesn't?" Vex asks. Maeve's eyes harden. "Then we burn it again." The nearby hunters exchange uneasy looks, clearly familiar with the process. Simon notices one of them discreetly tossing packets of herbs into the pale flames from a distance. The fire briefly flares brighter each time. Maeve notices Simon watching. "Salt, sage, iron filings," she explains. "Old road traditions." She looks back toward the corpse. "Sometimes traditions exist because somebody survived long enough to learn the hard way."
With the giant still burning, Simon will make camp with the rest of the caravan and proceeds to take a long rest, if that's okay.
Nobody objects. After what happened on the road tonight, even the guards arguing for extra watches are barely able to stand. The caravan settles uneasily into camp around the reinforced wagon circle, while Maeve's hunters maintain the bell lines and iron charms at the perimeter. The giant Mireborn continues burning in the marsh beyond camp. Pale blue-white flames flicker through the fog like a funeral pyre for something that should never have lived. Every now and then, a faint human scream echoes from the fire, or another pale spirit drifts upward and vanishes into the night. Nobody sleeps comfortably, but exhaustion eventually wins. Ash curls close beside Simon near the bedroll, though the fox wakes repeatedly throughout the night to stare toward the burning corpse and the surrounding fog. Still, no Myraborn return. At some point deep in the night, Simon half wakes to the distant sound of Maeve's bell ringing softly somewhere beyond the wagons. Gong! Not alarm, more like ritual. Then silence again. By dawn, the pale fire has finally died out. The giant corpse has collapsed into little more than blackened sludge and bone, and the fog over the marsh hangs thinner than before. Simon gains the benefits of a long rest. Spell slots restored, hit points restored, hit dice reset appropriately. Exhaustion removed, if applicable, but despite the rest, the road somehow feels heavier now.
Long rest. Okay. After the long rest, let's call it a night for the game. We'll start with the next episode in a few days. That's it for tonight, though.
The night finally gives way to a cold grey dawn over the marsh. Smoke drifts lazily from the caravan fires while exhausted guards trade shifts and wounded travellers slowly emerge from blankets and wagons. The remains of the giant Myraborn sit blackened in the mud beyond camp, little more than ash, sludge and twisted bone now, but nobody looks at it for very long. The road ahead waits, and somewhere beyond the fog and marshes, the Watcher still lives. For now, though, Simon survived the night, and the caravan still stands. End of episode 22.
Okay. That's going to do it for us for tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed it if you watched this far. If you did watch this far and you're interested to see what happens next, I strongly recommend you subscribe to the channel. That way you'll get a notification whenever we do go live. We've got our Curse Strahd game. We've got Blades for Hire solo game that we just played. And there's Ashes of What Remains, a 2-player game with ChatGPT as the DM. And then there's all the music I've been putting out here lately. So feel free to take a look around and see what you like. But for now, that's going to do it for the end of the game. Talk to you later. See you next time. Have fun. Have a good day. Goodbye.